Hey gang, I'm Fahaam, your financial freedom guru. Let's turn your dreams into billionaire success stories. Today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating stories of the 20th century, the life and journey of Aristotle Onassis, a man who turned tragedy into triumph, who rose from the ashes of a ruined childhood to become one of the wealthiest men alive. His story is not just about money, power, or fame, but about resilience, sharp business instincts, and the ability to see opportunities where others only saw disaster. If you've ever wondered how someone can go from having nothing to building an empire that spanned shipping, aviation, and even casinos, then Onassis is the perfect example. Aristotle Socrates Onassis was born in 1906 in Smyrna, Turkey, into a wealthy Greek family. His father, Socrates Onassis, was a successful shipping entrepreneur and tobacco merchant. As a child, young Aristotle grew up with comfort, surrounded by the privileges of a well-to-do family. But history has a way of testing even the strongest. In 1922, when Smyrna was destroyed during the Greco-Turkish War, the Onassis family lost almost everything. Their fortune, their stability, and their home were all gone overnight. Imagine being a teenager, accustomed to wealth, and suddenly finding yourself with nothing, forced to flee your home city with only the clothes on your back. That was Onassis's reality. At just 16 years old, he left for Argentina, with barely any money in his pocket. It would have been easy to give up, to accept a life of struggle and survival. But Onassis had something special, an unshakable belief that he could rebuild his life and rise higher than before. In Buenos Aires, he worked humble jobs, first as a telephone operator. But what made him stand out was his ability to observe, listen, and learn. He noticed the habits of wealthy businessmen who called through the telephone exchange, and he studied their ways of speaking and negotiating. This curiosity would later shape his extraordinary business style. It wasn't long before he found his first real opportunity. Argentina at the time was filled with European immigrants, many of whom longed for products from home. Onassis tapped into this demand by importing high-quality Turkish tobacco. He cleverly created a luxury cigarette brand, targeting the wealthy elite instead of trying to compete in the crowded mass market. His cigarettes, packaged elegantly, appealed to rich Argentinians and foreigners. Within just a few years, Aristotle Onassis became a millionaire through this business. This was his first fortune, built not on privilege or inheritance, but on pure ingenuity and understanding of what people wanted. But Onassis wasn't content with just being a successful tobacco merchant. He wanted more, something bigger, something that could create lasting wealth. That's when he turned his attention to shipping. He realized that the world economy depended on transporting goods, oil, and raw materials across oceans. Ships were the arteries of global trade, and whoever controlled the ships controlled the flow of money. Using his tobacco profits and his growing network of contacts, Onassis began buying ships. But here's where his brilliance really shined. He didn't just buy any ships, he bought old military surplus vessels after World War I, when they were being sold cheaply. Most people saw these vessels as outdated, but Onassis saw them as assets he could refurbish and put back into service for a fraction of the cost of building new ships. This decision marked the beginning of the Onassis shipping empire. He registered his ships in Panama and other countries with low taxes, a strategy that allowed him to maximize profits and minimize costs. Today, that seems normal, but back then, it was revolutionary. Onassis practically invented the concept of the flag of convenience, and it gave him a huge advantage over competitors. Soon, he had one of the largest private fleets in the world, carrying oil for major companies and goods across continents. He was no longer the poor refugee boy from Smyrna. He was now a global player. But Onassis wasn't just a businessman, he was a showman, a man who loved the limelight and understood the power of reputation. He bought luxurious yachts, including his famous yacht Christina, named after his daughter. He mingled with the rich, the powerful, and the glamorous. His relationships included some of the most famous women of his time, from opera singer Maria Callas to Jacqueline Kennedy, the widow of US President John F. Kennedy, whom he later married. These relationships made headlines and cemented his image not just as a billionaire, but as a larger-than-life figure. In business, his boldness never stopped. He expanded beyond shipping into aviation by acquiring Olympic Airways, turning it into a symbol of Greek pride. He also invested in the Monte Carlo casino, demonstrating his ability to diversify and seek profits across industries. Onassis was not afraid of risk. In fact, he thrived on it. He once said that the secret to business success was to always expect the worst and be ready to take advantage of opportunities when others are too scared to act. This mindset carried him through every stage of his empire building. Of course, Onassis's life wasn't without challenges. He faced lawsuits, government battles, and competition from other shipping magnates like Stavros Niarchos, who was both his rival in business and in love. He also suffered personal tragedies, including the death of his son Alexander in a plane crash, an event that broke his heart and marked the beginning of his decline. Despite his incredible wealth and power, Onassis could not protect himself from the pain of loss, proving that money can buy influence and comfort, but not immunity from life's sorrows. By the time of his death in 1975, Aristotle Onassis had become a legend. His fortune was estimated at hundreds of millions of dollars, and his shipping empire was one of the largest privately owned fleets in the world. But more importantly, his story left behind lessons about resilience, vision, and the courage to take risks. He began with nothing, an immigrant in a foreign land, and through sheer determination, sharp instincts, and relentless ambition, he built a name that continues to inspire entrepreneurs and dreamers to this day. What makes his story powerful is not just the billions he made, but the path he walked. He showed that success isn't about where you start, but how you respond to challenges. He faced war, exile, poverty, competition, and personal grief, yet he kept pushing forward, reinventing himself at every stage. Onassis teaches us that fortune favors the bold, and that true financial freedom requires both vision and fearlessness. For those of us today chasing financial freedom, the Onassis story is a reminder that opportunities are always around us, even in times of crisis. He turned surplus warships into billion-dollar profits. He turned cigarettes into luxury goods. He turned exile into empire. That mindset of transforming disadvantages into advantages is what separates the dreamers from the doers. So, as you think about your own journey, remember Aristotle Onassis. Remember the boy who lost everything in Smyrna but refused to stay down. Remember the immigrant who arrived in Argentina with nothing but turned himself into a millionaire in just a few years. Remember the man who saw ships not as rusting metal but as vessels of fortune. And remember that even in his personal pain, his story stands as a testament to the human will to rise, to build, and to create a life that echoes far beyond one's own time. Onassis's name became synonymous with wealth, glamour, and power, but at its core, his story is about freedom, the freedom to rebuild, to create, and to live life on your terms no matter the odds. That's what financial freedom is truly about, and that's why his journey fits perfectly with the spirit of this channel. So next time you think the odds are stacked against you, think of Aristotle Onassis. If he could build an empire from nothing, so can you. All it takes is vision, courage, and the determination to never stop moving forward.